Timothy Busfield surrenders to a systemic collapse of a 40-year prestige facade. The thinking actor archetype shattered against the cold concrete of an Albuquerque jail cell in early 2026. Indictments on 4 counts of criminal sexual contact replaced 700 credits of influence. A cinematic legacy is not a chronicle of success, but a study in structural fracture. How did the conductor of the Sorkin Symphony end up in the silence of a grand jury investigation? Why did the invisible architecture of television burn down? The blueprint of a career is rarely drawn in a vacuum. To find the architect of the thinking actor, we have to travel back to 1957 in Lansing, Michigan, a landscape defined not by the assembly lines of Detroit, but by the intellectual hum of academia. This was Timothy Busfield's 0 point. Born into a literary-based household, his father taught theater arts, while his mother helmed the Michigan State University Press. This wasn't just a home, it was a factory for a specific kind of artistic pedigree. As noted by Robert J. Thompson in his seminal work, Television's Second Golden Age, this quality pedigree is a fundamental requirement for the artists who would later revolutionize the medium. Busfield wasn't just learning to memorize lines, he was absorbing the structural mechanics of storytelling from the rafters of university theaters. He was a product of a scholarly milieu, where the precision of the printed word met the raw, tactile energy of the stage. This upbringing provided the invisible architecture for his entire professional life. In 1975, an 18-year-old Busfield stepped into the professional light for the first time as Puck in a children's version of A Midsummer Night's Dream in Johnson City, Tennessee. It was a modest debut, yet it established a career-long preoccupation with the collaborative process. This regional apprenticeship in the South served as his true education, far removed from the neon vanity of Hollywood. He was becoming an actor who didn't just perform, he understood the ensemble, a discipline rooted in the practical theater methods of Bertolt Brecht. The late 70s were a watershed moment for American media history, a time of profound transition. As the world became increasingly mediatized, Busfield transitioned from the academic core of the Midwest to the burgeoning regional theater movements. He was a systemic anomaly, a classically trained mind preparing for a decade that would soon be defined by neon excess and capitalist materialism. But before he could become the face of a generation's collective angst, he had to navigate the cinematic pivot of the early 80s. In 1987, the American television landscape was a sterile geography of procedurals, endless loops of police sirens, legal gavels, and ER gurneys. Then came 30-something. It was a systemic anomaly, a series that traded high-stakes crime for the high-stakes minutia of the baby boomer kitchen table. For Timothy Busfield, cast as the restless Elliot Weston, this wasn't just a job, it was an entry into a generic mongrel. As Robert J. Thompson analyzes in Television's Second Golden Age, the show recombined traditional TV formulas with a literary and cinematic ambition that shattered the medium's metronomic patterns. The set of 30-something was a masterclass in domestic realism. The creators, Marshall Herskovitz and Edward Zwick, operated with a feature film sensibility, prioritizing atmospheric lighting and cinematography that rejected the flat, bright sitcom glow of the era. The Stedman House set was so physically etched into the cast's psyche that years later they could still navigate its layout from memory. The atmosphere was tactile, the smell of donuts eaten by cast members' children, the auditory texture of the ensemble laughing during lighting breaks, and the constant rhythmic shouting of directors trying to quiet a young and foolish crew. But the revolution was also statistical and industrial. Despite being a 13-time Emmy Award winner, the show famously defied the capitalist logic of Hollywood. While most series grind toward the 100-episode milestone to trigger lucrative syndication deals, the creators chose to end 30-something after just 85 episodes. They felt they had said everything. This was the paradox, a hit show that refused to be a product. This defiance created a fertile, earn-as-you-learn film school environment where Busfield began his pivot, directing 3 episodes and winning a Supporting Actor Emmy in the series' final year. Yet this mirage of domestic bliss frequently collided with the systemic rigidity of network censors. The production was a catalyst for controversy, clashing over the depiction of 2 men in bed and the removed scenes of shower intimacy. These were the first tremors of a changing culture, where the personal was becoming aggressively political. Busfield navigated this transition from actor to auteur, learning that the most powerful tool on set wasn't the script, it was the lens. behind the facade of the relatable yuppie and the charming everyman lay a rigorous, invisible framework that anchored Timothy Busfield's credibility. While Hollywood often rewards the star vehicle, a system designed to orbit a single ego, Busfield's career was a systemic anomaly. He didn't just walk onto a set to perform, he walked into a laboratory. This wasn't accidental. It was the manifestation of a specific theatrical lineage that prioritized the group over the individual, the message over the mask. As explained by David Barnett in his book A History of the Berliner Ensemble, this phenomenon is known as the thinking actor. This Brechtian theory posits that the actor is not a mere vessel for emotion, but an intellectual collaborator. The thinking actor engages in a process where dialogue, education, and the structural mechanics of the stage are fundamental to the performance. For Busfield, the ensemble wasn't just a cast, it was a collective architecture of social commentary. This was the Brechtian anchor that prevented him from drifting into the shallow waters of celebrity.
In practice, this meant a rejection of the star hegemony. On the sets of the late 80s and early 90s, Busfield operated as a thinking actor by treating the production as a constant dialogue between the script and the socio-political anxieties of the era. Whether he was portraying a conflicted ad executive or an earnest journalist, there was a tactile, analytical quality to his presence. He understood the architecture of time, how a pause or a specific cadence could reveal the systemic rot or the hidden grace within a character. This intellectual rigor was the catalyst for his ultimate evolution. He realized that to truly embody the thinking actor, he had to master the environment that contained the performance. The rehearsal room, the lighting grid, and the camera lens were all extensions of the same Brechtian philosophy. He was preparing to move from being a part of the ensemble to conducting it. He was ready for a new kind of rhythm, one defined by the rapid-fire intelligence of a different kind of architect.
In the high-stakes corridors of Aaron Sorkin's White House, words are not merely spoken, they are weaponized. To enter this world is to step into a rhythmic, rapid-fire symphony, where intelligence is the only currency that matters. For Timothy Busfield, this partnership began not on a film set, but on the boards of Broadway. In 1990, he stepped into the role of Daniel Coffey in A Few Good Men, replacing Tom Hulce. This wasn't just a substitution, it was the birth of a creative shorthand that would define the next 2 decades of his career. Sorkin, an auteur whose signature is astute intelligence and sharp dialogue, found in Busfield the perfect vessel for his distinctive voice. The Sorkin Symphony is most famously embodied in the walk and talk. This storytelling technique, where characters engage in dense, high-stakes debate while physically navigating the geography of power, became the hallmark of The West Wing. As Danny Connincannon, the Pulitzer Prize-winning White House correspondent, Busfield occupied a unique space. He was the bridge between the administration and the public, a character who had to be both playful and morally complex. The role required a thinking actor who could maintain the velocity of Sorkin's prose without losing the humanic, earnest quality that anchored the performance. The atmosphere on a Sorkin set is one of extreme precision. The dialogue is often delivered at a rapid-fire pace, exposing aspects of communication that go far beyond the words that are spoken. It is a world of intellectual athletics. Busfield's performance as Concannon, particularly his electric, long-burning romantic arc with Allison Janney's C.J. Craig, became one of the series' most enduring narrative threads. He was the new man of the 90s, supportive, rigorous, and undeniably smart. As Thomas Fahey notes in his work Considering Aaron Sorkin, this approach creates a unique sleight of hand where the personal drama is inextricably woven into larger societal issues. Busfield later transitioned this shorthand into Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, playing Cal Shanley, the control director of the show within the show. Here, he was once again at the heart of the Sorkin machine, navigating the combative backstage world of entertainment. He was no longer just an actor, he was a key collaborator in a medium that Sorkin helped elevate into a second golden age. The 1990s were not just a decade of neon aesthetics and dial-up tones. They represented a systemic watershed moment in the architecture of global labor. As neoliberalism began releasing the brakes on the market, the media industry demanded a new kind of artist, the flexible, unbridled multi-hyphenate. While many of his peers were content to reside within the passive glow of the spotlight, Timothy Busfield adopted a philosophy of relentless motion. "I just didn't want to sit," he later reflected.
This restlessness was the catalyst for a pivot that transformed him from a face on the screen to the hand behind the lens, eventually amassing a staggering 700 combined credits as an actor, producer, and director. This evolution began as a direct challenge to the established hegemony of the television set. During the production of 30-something, Busfield witnessed co-star Peter Horton stepping into the director's chair and recognized a loophole in the traditional power structure. "If he's directing, can we direct?" he asked. It was a move towards professional self-actualization that bypassed the standard gatekeepers. He didn't wait for permission. He utilized the set as a laboratory, learning the structural mechanics of the quality TV aesthetic that Robert Thompson argues was spreading like a virus through the industry. By the time he was helming episodes of Sports Night and Without a Trace, he wasn't just directing scenes, he was executive producing entire narrative worlds.
But this flexibilization came at a high psychological cost. Directing and executive producing creates big weeks, a wearing, high-octane environment that mirrors the relentless capitalist pressures of the era. Busfield sought to counter this by creating a really nice environment on his sets, utilizing his background as a thinking actor to humanize the industrial grind. He moved with increasing ease between the high-pressure control rooms of Studio 60 and the technical precision of Damages, a living embodiment, the individualization that scholars identify as a core trait of the late-century media landscape. He had mastered the machine, but he refused to let it become a factory. While the Hollywood hegemony was busy grooming Timothy Busfield for the spotlight, a different kind of architecture was being built in the shadows of Sacramento. In 1986, alongside his brother Buck, Busfield founded the B Street Theater, originally incorporated under the unassuming title Theater for Children, Inc. This was not a vanity project, it was a structural intervention. While the industry was obsessed with flexibilization and individual branding, B Street was a return to the regional grit of the collective. It was a site where the thinking actor met the raw, unpolished reality of the American school gym. The B Street philosophy was a radical departure from the ivory towers of the arts. Busfield's mantra was simple: entertainment first, education second. He understood that if you didn't grab the audience by the throat, the message was irrelevant. This led to a democratization of the arts that bypassed the typical gatekeepers of the equity union. "If you were good, we offered you a contract," Busfield noted, hiring talent like Elizabeth Nunziato and Scott Jones from across the country. As Thomas Cornford analyzes in his book Theater Studios, A Political History of Ensemble Theater Making, this approach identifies theater as a site for developing counter-hegemonic, radically democratic, anti-individualist forms of cultural production. The sensory reality of B Street was a far cry from the cinematic lighting of 30-something. It was defined by 6 a.m. calls at an old Victorian house and the cramped, tactile interior of a brand-new Ford van. Actors slept in the back of the vehicle as they traversed a cornucopia of elementary schools across Northern California, performing 45-minute plays 12 times a week, 38 weeks a year. It was a 10-month intensive grind that forced young actors to master every mechanical aspect of the craft, from administration to front-of-house operations. Statistically, the impact was profound. B Street grew from a touring troupe into a cornerstone of regional culture, eventually performing to 70,000 adults and over 200,000 children annually. It was named Best Live Theater for 14 consecutive years. This was the anomaly, a major TV star who spent his hiatuses in the trenches of regional performance. Busfield was utilizing the architecture of the ordinary to ground his fame, ensuring that even as his face was beamed into millions of homes, his feet remained firmly planted in the dust of a Sacramento stage.
The paradox of Timothy Busfield lies in the friction between his intellectual screen presence and his raw physical reality. While the public consumed the mirage of the sensitive yuppie, the man himself was often found in the dirt of a baseball diamond. He was the actor's athlete, an anomaly in a profession that frequently bifurcates the mind and the body. For 9 seasons spanning from 1992 to 2000, Busfield served as a starting pitcher for the Sacramento Smokies, a semi-professional team. His performance was not a celebrity cameo, it was a statistical achievement, amassing a 30-12 record against high-caliber college and former professional players. This wasn't a hobby, it was a fundamental anchor for his naturalistic, earnest quality on screen. As explored by scholars in the context of late-century media, this phenomenon is tied to the theory of dueling masculinities. In the 1980s and 90s, the American male was a site of systemic tension, torn between the rugged cowboy ethos of the Reagan administration and the emerging new man who was supportive of shifting gender roles. This transition, often characterized as a move toward a more flexible domesticity, found its perfect vessel in Busfield. Whether he was playing the skeptical brother-in-law in Field of Dreams or the first baseman in Little Big League, he embodied a masculinity that was both authentic and vulnerable. He could throw a fastball with the precision of a professional, yet navigate the intellectual complexities of a Sorkin script without missing a beat.
This physical authenticity was a catalyst for his longevity. In an industry increasingly obsessed with the always already new media of the digital age, Busfield remained a legacy stalwart. His induction into the Sacramento Area Baseball Hall of Fame in 2024 served as a testament to this dual identity. He was a man who understood the architecture of the stadium as intimately as the architecture of the soundstage. He represented a specific kind of American liberal humanism, a character who was smart, capable, and fundamentally relatable. But even the most authentic image can be shattered by a systemic rupture.
The final frames of this story aren't shot in 4K with cinematic lighting or underscored by a Sorkin-esque symphony. Instead, they are captured through the grainy, cold lens of an Albuquerque courtroom. In January 2026, the thinking actor, the man who built the very architecture of relatable American masculinity, became the center of a profound systemic paradox. An arrest warrant, followed by a multi-agency search involving the U.S. Marshals, culminated in Timothy Busfield surrendering to authorities to face counts of criminal sexual contact with a child. The allegations, rooted in incidents on the set of The Cleaning Lady between 2022 and 2024, shattered the mirage of the liberal humanist icon. While his legal counsel maintains his innocence and points to a Warner Bros. Investigation that found no corroborating evidence, the prosecution paints a darker picture of grooming and systemic abuse involving 11-year-old twins. This is the deepest layer of the Busfield anomaly, the disconnect between the image of the protective, intellectual new man and the reality of a grand jury indictment. The very systems that once elevated him, the network TV machine and the B Street Theater, now found themselves navigating an institutional veil as historical accusations from years past began to resurface.
This fracture is not just about one individual. It is about the instability of legacy in an era of mediatization and absolute accountability. As media sociologists Andreas Hepp and Stieg Jarvard argue, our world is so deeply mediatized that it is impossible to understand a person's history without the prism of their public image. For 40 years, the industry utilized Busfield as a catalyst for quality TV, a genre Robert Thompson defined by its moral complexity and realism. Yet, the current judicial process reveals a fundamental reality. Even the most carefully constructed prestige image is susceptible to a systemic collapse when the flow of power is challenged by the victims.
Timothy Busfield's story is a testament to the power of the frame. For decades, we looked through the lens he helped polish, seeing a mirror of our own domestic anxieties and intellectual aspirations. But the frame is a boundary, a deliberate exclusion of everything that doesn't fit the narrative. As the cinematic lighting fades and the court transcripts replace the scripts, we are left with a haunting paradox. Can we ever truly know the architect, or are we only ever in love with the building? In the end, perhaps the most disturbing realization is that while the image remains frozen in its golden age, the man behind it has moved into a darkness no studio light can reach. If our heroes are merely the sum of the frames we choose to see, what does that say about the reality we ignore? Timothy Busfield surrenders to a systemic collapse of a 40-year prestige facade. The thinking actor archetype shattered against the cold concrete of an Albuquerque jail cell in early 2026. Indictments on 4 counts of criminal sexual contact replaced 700 credits of influence. A cinematic legacy is not a chronicle of success, but a study in structural fracture. How did the conductor of the Sorkin Symphony end up in the silence of a grand jury investigation? Why did the invisible architecture of television burn down?